They called him the Diesel.
Crank up that diesel. Let's go.
He leaned across the table and he goes, "You need to get me back there. I'll make you famous."
And Riggo's good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.
It's Riggo, the Diesel.
Hello and welcome to Riggo the Diesel. I am Riggo the Diesel, John Riggins. Glad to have you with us for episode 27. Larry Michael. With
Hello.
me, as always.
How are you, man?
And I'm fine. How you doing?
Pretty good. I got this thing on my door called Ring. It's this app. It's this video monitor. You've probably seen them advertised on TV. And it's going crazy right now because of the wind.
Really?
Yes, that is what you heard before we went on the air. There's nobody there. I think it's just blowing debris, which looks to the camera. It triggers that camera.
Oh, this is coming from your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. You ought to get one, John. They're very cool.
I might try that. But you know what? You bring up one of my least favorite subjects, the wind. I wasn't even going to go in this direction, but on the one hand, riding in there, I said, I almost have to comment on it. See, I have to say there's places that are windy, and then there are places that are windy. And we seem, to me, I think, to a certain extent, get a fair amount of wind around here. Now, I grew up in Kansas, and we had wind.
You had wind.
But then again, when I was traveling, what's that?
Tornadoes.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother ballgame. That's a whole nother level of wind. I'm not talking about solid wind like we're having today. What gusts, I think, around 40 miles an hour, maybe even
50.
Yeah, and you go out even further north and west, say Montana, Wyoming, and I got to say, now they've got wind. So there's all different factions of it, and I find it very disruptive. In fact, I would rather it was raining right now and calm than to have it sunny like it is. And it's kind of a brisk day, really. It's probably in the mid-40s, mid-50s here. But the wind is blowing like there's no tomorrow, so it doesn't do anything good for me.
You think back in the day, the combine was outside, there might have been wind-aided 40s?
Could have been, but I don't think it's ever been outside, Larry.
I don't think so, has it?
And well, let's start there, because we're going to do the combine. I was going to get into something else with my daughter, who had a soccer game last night. I'll real quickly. I canceled all day yesterday because there was a tournament that they had, and it was for the finals, and it started at 6 o'clock last night, and we got there in plenty of time, only to find out that she had ear studs in her ears, and the ref wouldn't let her play with them. She spent the first half of the first half on the bench trying to get the studs out. So
really?
I'm sitting there going, what did I come out here for? It's just like,
I want to shoot myself. My kids, my daughters.
She did that, but the guy said, won't work. You got to take them out. And the day before, she taped her ears. In the game leading up to this, it was okay. And I told her the day before, I said, you never know. You might get a ref that's going to say, yeah, you can't play with those. And sure enough, we got one yesterday, and I was just like, I was mortified. Now, I have to say that I'm taking this prednisone, which makes you irritable, and I was very irritable. Are
you irritable?
I was last night. I'm a little better now.
You're a little better?
I drove out
there. You slept it off a little bit?
I slept it off, yeah. So I'm good now. Anyway, getting back to the combine, and you're talking about outdoors. I don't think that I recall, it's always been in Indianapolis, and I think Indianapolis, they always had a dome there, so I think they've always had it inside, and it's always been approximately this time of year. I'd be surprised if they did, but I would go back, and then because I want to because you're leaving today to go to Indianapolis.
Yeah, we'll go
correct?
actually tomorrow morning. Yeah, I'm not leaving in this wind.
Well, I
ain't gonna go in this wind, John. You kidding me?
Did you cancel your flight because?
No,
of the wind?
It's tomorrow anyway. It's tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I'm leaving.
Well, the wind itself, per se, if you're flying a plane, what little I know about, I've got about 20 some hours of instruction. It's not a bad thing, actually. Because the planes always land into the wind and they take off into the wind to get the lift. So
it's true.
And the side wind is what can be a little tricky.
It's that side wind that you got to be worried about.
So you got to crab into it when you're landing. But back in the old days, what I recall, there was no combine actually when I was coming out. The closest you got to a combine back in those days, Larry, was my beliefs, and it could have been some other games as well, was the Senior Bowl. Because you had not all the staff, but you had two staffs down there. In my day, it was the New York Jets were coaching the South, and the Denver Broncos were coaching the North team down in the Senior Bowl. And when you were down there that whole week, you had a lot of scouts and stuff ask you, hey, come up and take a test and do it. That was it. There wasn't anything. They didn't have you run. They didn't have you do anything. And I don't know how. Do you happen to know the history of the actual combine itself, how old it is?
I'm gonna find that out. We got T-Cat over here checking it out. But it's been in Indianapolis. It was at the RCA Dome before they imploded that, and now it's at Lucas Oil Stadium, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And the media there is getting bigger and bigger. Just, people just want to keep hearing about these young kids coming out the bench press. And I was looking it up, John, and Fred Smoot does some stuff for us. We see him occasionally, and Fred, in fact, holds the record for fewest reps on the bench.
Is that right?
1.
He got 1.
1. 225. He got 1. Which
is that for all comers, or is that just defensive back?
I think that's for all comers. Stephen Paya, who was
you
a
mean
Redskin,
even the punters and kickers?
Do they make them do that? I guess even
they do even go. Are
even
there
they. No, yeah, there's punters and kickers there, but even they had more than 1 rep. Heck, I can do more than 1 rep. T-Cat can do more than 1 rep. And
now, time out.
Stage.
That bench press was never my baby either. I can relate to what Fred's going through there.
Well, you could have done more than 1, man.
I probably, but not a whole lot more.
Ask Fred about it.
I didn't lift weights, so I wouldn't have known.
You never lifted weights?
Not through high school, not through college, not through 10 years of my career. I didn't start lifting weights until Dan Riley showed up here, and that would have been Coach Gibbs' 2nd year.
What'd you do? Calisthenics? So-called calisthenics?
You know what I did, Larry? I did, and we'll talk about this guy.
Farm work?
No, I did weird type stuff. I chop wood, climb rope, skip rope, punch a speed bag. I did stuff like that. I was kind of, a little bit, wasn't into weightlifting. Well, my dad, on the one hand, he thought he knew everything, and I found out later he knew very little about what was going on outside, where he prided himself on having so much knowledge. But he always said, "Oh, you lift weights, you'll get muscle bound."
Oh yeah, that one.
That was
you lived through. You actually grew up right through the period where people really adopted weights as a training technique, because you go back to the generation before you, back to Sonny's generation per se. They didn't lift a lot of weights.
No. Well, listen, when I went to the Jets, this is 1971, we practiced at Shea Stadium, and in the Jets locker room, their weight room was a universal machine. That was the weights. If you wanted to lift weights, that's what you had. But I will say this, you are 100% right about, as far as, I would say that the period, and I'm going to guess it probably started maybe in the Tokyo Olympics, and perhaps even the Mexico City Olympics.
Yep.
Because we had 3 weight men on the track team that were in the NCAA anyway, that were at the top of their game. There was a discus thrower, there was a shot putter, and then there was a guy that did a little bit of both. And those 3, and I got to believe, now I don't want to make false accusations, but they were into the weights, and I got a feeling that's kind of when U.S. athletes would go to these various European meets, and they'd kind of get to talking to the German people, and particularly the East Germans. Yes. I think that's when anabolic steroids started to cross the Atlantic Ocean, and and that's when, really, I mean, when you look at it at the beginning in the early 70s, that's the proliferation of PEDs. I think that's approximately when, late 60s, early 70s.
I would say you're right. And Sam Huff told me that back in his day, he told me this story several times, he had a teammate by the name of Joe Don Looney. And I remember that name.
Yeah.
He was a character. I think he ended up training tigers in India or something.
Yep.
He was a very odd guy, end of the day. Sam told me that he'd bring a suitcase to camp every year, and he had his own weights. He's the only guy that did weights, and he used to bring his own weights, and Sam thought he was nuts. This guy would schlep his weights around week to week, and he was lifting weights back in those days, early 60s, I guess. Early 60s, mid to early 60s when Sam was here.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was going to say he was a running back. I think grew up in Texas, was from the University of Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, he went to school at the University of Oklahoma. I think he was a first-round draft pick by the Detroit Lions, I want to say, and then he bounced around a little bit. But he wasn't a real steady guy, but supposedly a very talented guy. But yeah, one of the first guys to lift weights. So anyway, let's jump back around to lifting weights and the
combine.
And the combine,
we have news.
Yeah, so the combine, you probably remember a couple of scouting services. There was the Blesto scouting service, and another one called the National Football Scouting Inc. So they had competing camps. Then they all got together to cut costs, worked with the league, and basically it was they all 3 merged in 1985.
85.
Cut the cost of running extra camps. First held in New Orleans in 1984 before the merger, then Arizona in 85.
Before what merger?
Of the 3
sorry.
junior camps. permanently moved to Indianapolis in '87.
Okay, so you wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to a combine.
No, I wouldn't have. But
scouting services would have come seeing you.
And that's kind of the way it was back in those days. I think, depending on the relationship that the scouts or the professional teams had with that particular coaching staff. Obviously, I was at the University of Kansas. The head coach, if he liked you, I suppose, he'd let your people come and watch practice, and, they'd get you out there, and they would time you. Sometimes I remember, you're just kind of, your coaches are telling you what to do, so you can't hardly say, well, I don't want to do this, but you're really kind of showcasing. They're rubbing elbows with the pros, so you're showcasing for them. And that's kind of, I think, pretty much the way it was. But I don't know what it was, but I wasn't really, big on doing all that stuff. And I don't even know why, really, other than the fact that, well, I know what I can do.
I would have thought you running a 40, John, because you were a track guy. That would have been impressive. A guy your size, I think you talk about measurables, a guy your size with that kind of speed, it would have jumped off the sheet of paper to the scouts.
You know what, Larry? It's funny, though, but I think that there are people, and I think I may be one of them, where, I couldn't run all that fast on Saturday. I got a lot faster on Sunday. And I think it had something to do with people chasing me. I'm not sure. Because I'm going, who cares? And all of a sudden, I care. These guys are going to tear me apart. Seriously, I think there's a huge difference. I look back when I was in high school, and I remember we used to have, I had a kid there, and he wasn't fast at all, really. His name was Billy Lewis. And my brother, of course, who was always just, like a step faster than I was, but he's a couple years older, as I point out to everybody, which is significant back when you're in high school. But Billy Lewis would run right on my tail, and I might beat him, but it'd be real close. And but if we ran in a track meet, he wouldn't, he was nowhere around. So I just figured I would.
You're too modest, John.
No, I was a game day guy.
I saw the highlights of you, John Riggins, winning that 100-yard dash in the high school championships in the football life of John Riggins. I saw but you were the state champion.
Yeah, I was, but I couldn't believe I saw it too for the first time, and I'm going, I didn't know those guys were so close. I thought I was way out ahead of them.
What do you think of the 40 at the combine now, John? I think that's pretty important, I think, right? It was one thing we see a guy have short distance speed. I mean, they're going to be talking about these guys' 40s 10 years from now.
I think I will go back to Coach Gibbs. Sometimes I think it's you can't hardly go wrong with some of the things that he had said, and it's kind of what we were just talking about. That you get guys that can run 4.8, 4.7, 4.6, keep on going down to 4.1, 4.2, and that's great. But you put them on a football field, and you put pads on them, and all of a sudden the 4.2 guy is now running 5.2. And, of course, I'm exaggerating here. But the guy that ran 4.8, he's still running 4.8, maybe he's running 4.7, meaning, and this is where, to me, I see the combine a little bit, and certainly you have to kind of recognize that now, that it's a great marketing tool for the NFL. And I think it also is a great showcase for the NCAA, because they're the ones that are producing the athletes that show up and take part in this almost competition now, because like you're saying, records are kept on what goes on from one year to the next year, the fastest 40, the most bench presses, and whatever the shuttle runs and all that stuff. And I'm always kind of amazed at actually a scout that goes there and looks at that. How much of that, from a scout's perspective, does he take away on just, the actual numbers of what a guy can do in certain events that has really not that much to do with the game of football, if you will? Because, they always talk about the speed of the game. And when you leave college and you get the NFL, the game is so much faster. I never really found that to be true in my own personal case. And I'll tell you what I always thought the difference was, is it's the game itself is so much more complicated, that there's more thinking that is involved. And when you're thinking and trying to perform athletic, maneuvers or whatever, if you will, is kind of counterintuitive. In other words, football is a game of reaction, and the more you think, the slower your reaction time. So that, to me, was always, that's the speed of the game, is a kid has to catch up mentally to how fast things are going on in the field, not necessarily foot speed. But that's just my take on it. Some people may tell you the opposite.
That's a very, very good point, and it caused me to think, why don't they do the 40s with them wearing pads?
Yeah, that's another good point.
Why wouldn't they put him in a football?
But nowadays, Larry, in all honesty, it's about the same. I don't see many pads on guys playing today, which tells me something that, are they playing the same game that I used to play? I don't think so. Well, anyway, let's take a little break here.
We'll continue the conversation, but if you're looking for a family-owned and operated heating and AC contractor, Bowman's Heating and AC, the company you're looking for over 30 years, Bowman's has serviced Northern Virginia, taking care of any heating and cooling situation that comes their way or your way. Bowman's friendly and highly trained technicians specialize in air conditioner and furnace repair, as well as servicing and maintaining indoor air quality equipment and any other HVAC equipment you may have. Call Bowman's Heating and AC 703-471-0452 to schedule an appointment today. Bowman's Heating and AC 703-471-0452.
El Riggo here with another of my hard-earned lessons that I'm going to share with you. And believe it or not, it doesn't involve any cops or judges. Several years back, I forgot to winterize a hose bib. And the temperature dropped down into the low 20s, and the floodgates to the basement opened up. Now, it all could have been prevented had I unhooked the hose bib and shut off the hose bib from the inside of the house, then opened the faucet on the hose bib. So if you want to roll the dice, go ahead. But if you crap out, call O'Connor Plumbing at 1-833-RIGGO-44. 1-833-RIGGO-44, and you can call them 24/7.
What is a hose bib?
You know, it's out there. They call it a hose bib. It's basically where your faucet is on the outside of your house.
It's like your spigot, as we call it. Extreme opportunity, John, to win millions of dollars ahead. That got Todd's attention. The Extreme Millions Scratcher will give you $10 million without you having to do anything at all. Again, right up Todd's line. The game has a $10 million top prize, a $1 million second prize, over $256 million in total prizes in the entire game. All you have to do is head to your local lottery retailer. This game will make even the dullest winter day sparkle. You have 30 chances to win per ticket. If you have a non-winning ticket, you can enter into the second chance drawing in April for a $1 million prize. Should you check out Extreme Millions? That's an extremely easy question to answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand back and watch the Phoenix rise from the ashes.
Stand back.
Stand back.
It's Riggo the Diesel.
That never gets old, does it, Larry?
It doesn't. I love it. I love it. I want to see Todd go through a shuttle run.
Yeah, particularly today, we want to see Todd on a shuttle run. Todd needs some prednisone, like I'm taking.
You're looking big, John. You're looking big. Your arms look bigger. Your shoulders look bigger.
And I'm wearing black. That's hard to do. If I had a white sweater on,
bulked up.
I could see it.
Did you watch the Oscars last night?
Well, we already had our little contest in here. Todd wins because he did not watch any Oscars. You get second. You get the silver because you watched 10 minutes of it, right?
Yeah,
15?
probably 10 minutes.
I watched about 45, but I went to bed at 9:30, and I think the Oscars started about 8 o'clock or something, and we were a little bit late to it. You know, a completely different show, and Todd likes to use this expression, and he's the one that turned me onto it, and I sometimes use it, but you remember with Happy Days when they finally
jumped the shark.
Jumped the shark. I'm starting to think that the Oscars have jumped the shark.
Oh man, you know what? I
don't know. I mean, in other words, think of something's happened, and I suppose it's our culture, and that's where we become old farts. But maybe we're just grumpy old men. I don't know. But you used to think of the Oscars of being so classy with the Cary Grants and the Gary Coopers and John Waynes and all this. Everybody in a tuxedo, the women in there. Nowadays, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but some cat showed up with a tuxedo gown on.
I saw that picture, and I was wondering if it was photoshopped.
It looked like I was watching it, and Coco's the one that nailed it. Said he looked like he was from Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it was just like she said, the caterpillar, and I went, yeah, the caterpillar. That's what.
It was a big billowy gown, too, and a very tight tuxedo top. It was very odd, but you sit there and
love it.
I got through the red carpet watching it there with my wife, and I said, there's probably not a better looking actress than Charlize Theron. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
But my gosh, if you look her up, T-Cat. Look up what she was wearing, what they put her in, and there's. You know the expression "putting lipstick on a pig"?
Yes, I do.
This is that. This is that inverted. Okay, she is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful actresses out there, and somehow they dressed her up, and she looked like an alien from Mars. And I just it went downhill from there. It went downhill, and you look at some of the winners. I mean, I don't know. I get these videos mailed to me because I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and I get to vote on this stuff.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
You vote on everything.
But I've never heard of any of them. I kind of have to recuse myself because
you can't get Jacoby an Oscar.
I can't get Joe Jacoby an Oscar. No, I could probably get him an Oscar easier than getting him in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. And then the day after, it is the big recap of all the faux pas and everything. And I'm just sick of all this, man. I'm sick of Empire. I'm sick of watching all this news unfold about these people who I've never heard of. I mean, I don't know. That's the age we're living in. I guess I do sound like an angry old man.
Yeah, we are. We're a little grumpy, Larry. But, what's interesting is what you just said, because I was going to bring this up. But I take it then you get all kinds of DVDs about, back starting in January, and it says for your consideration.
Yes.
You get those.
I get those. I get
those
in the mail.
I get those too, but I don't get any ballot. What's going on with that?
I don't know, but you're in SAG-AFTRA too, aren't you?
Yeah, and I don't understand why I don't get a ballot. But I'm afraid if I call them and say, hey, I'm getting my DVDs, but I'm not getting the ballot, they'll go, oh, what's the name again? Riggins. Oh, you know what? That's a mistake. You're not even supposed to get the DVDs.
You know what? It could be the SAG Awards. I get
the
SAG Awards. That's what I get. It's not the Oscar. It's the SAG Award. SAG Awards happened about a month ago, month and a half ago. That's the ballot I get.
But do you get the DVDs for the movies? Do you get DVDs?
Yes.
Okay, so that
goes
goes
the
along
one about Dick Cheney and George Bush. Which one is that? Vice?
Vice, yeah.
That was probably the best one that I received this year.
I can't remember. I did get it. I can't remember if I watched it.
But you got a DVD.
There's some of that stuff I started to watch, and I can't watch it now. I don't want to take anything away from the movie because my wife and daughter are dying to watch it. A Star is Born.
Oh, my God. I've heard about that. Oh, Bradley Cooper. I've heard that.
And Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. I've had it up to here with The Star is Born, okay? Can we talk some football?
Well, hold it, but I'm not quite. I've just got a little bit left here. When you say you've had it up to here, that's kind of where ultimately I think it takes a lot of us because, and you see it happening perhaps a little bit in sports, but it would appear to me that, and I don't know why one feels or people give actors, the people who really engage in fantasy, living truthfully on imaginary circumstances, which there's a certain talent it takes to do that. But it seems doesn't our culture, our society seems that we give them an undue amount of prestige or importance based on the imaginary lives that they live, and they come back, and I'm not going to say one way or the other because I don't want to be political, but at the same time you have to use the word politics because Hollywood is certainly, if it's nothing else, and I think you saw that last night, and that's what maybe is skewing the perception of the Oscars. It's become a political football, I think, and you just, for better or worse, it's kind of like, well, is this reality that people really believe this, or are these people behind the scenes manipulating things so they can make a statement? That's kind of the way it came across to me.
Well, I mean, wasn't Kevin, hey, T-Cat, wasn't Kevin Hart supposed to host the Oscars?
Originally, yes.
But he got bounced because of some comments he made years ago. And
it's from 10 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right, John. You're right. And again, some of these movies, but I would say this, that people pay to watch these movies. And so if you look at how much money is generated by the movie industry and how many people really do pay attention to the movies and anticipate the when they come out, and it's a lot of money. So I think therein lies the interest level, because a lot of people, me and you, might be in the minority a little bit, but I think you make a good point. I agree with you 100%. But I'll go around here. Devontae, what's the last movie you went to see?
Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, how many movies you go to each month?
A month? Oh, less than one.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying is I think a lot of people are doing like what we do, is you wait for it to get on television and you wait it out, because right now, we had one Best Documentary, Free Solo, I've been waiting for that. I wasn't going to pay $15 for it, to buy it. So I think on the 26th you can actually rent free. So my point is
that about the guy who climbed El Capitan? That was on yesterday on ESPN. They had a whole big thing on it. Yeah, wow, that was incredible. And the crew that films that, they have to be experienced climbers themselves. Well, and he was going at such a fast pace that they had to make him wait. He was beating his projected time by 45 minutes. And, of course,
so the crew couldn't keep up with him.
So the guy who's the producer, the head guy, says, give me 60 seconds. I give you 8 seconds. They just got up ahead of him, set up their cameras, and got him when he got to the top. How do you get down?
I think there's helicopter pics yet. It would be. Because I'm going to tell you something. I've never done this before, but I know one thing. It's a lot easier going up in anything than it is coming back down. Because going up, you can see what you're grabbing and all this stuff. Coming down, it's feet first.
Yeah. No, that scares the heck out of me.
That would be the real thing. Can he free solo going down?
That's the real Spider-Man.
Or if he turns around like a cat and goes down a tree.
Face first?
Yeah, cats go down a tree. Well, no, sometimes they'll back down.
I thought maybe they have some trail and the guys on motorcycles come up and get you. But no, they're going to have to come down somehow.
I'm telling you, I think it's a helicopter picks you up.
Sounds like a helicopter's landing in here. Wow, that is a heavy wind. Hey, John, here's a little tip. If you need a mortgage, use the pros at McLean Mortgage. Buying a home can be stressful and filled with hassles. The experts at McLean Mortgage understand what important financial investment in your home is. They'll seamlessly guide you through the process, successfully making you a homeowner. Smooth, amazing, easy, professional, first rate. Some of the reviews from their tens of thousands of homeowners. Trust McLean Mortgage. Check them out. McLeanMortgage.com. Lending as it should be. And people improve their lives is what should drive business, and that's the belief at Koch Industries. They employ more than 65,000 people across America. The team at Koch works together to meet the world's changing needs in transportation, medical care, water filtration, household goods, energy-efficient building products, and everyday technologies, all while consuming fewer resources. See the innovations firsthand at kochindustries.com.
Who's bored? Who's broke? And who's back?
I wanted to always see the redwoods. I wanted to see the Rocky Mountains. I wanted to see the Painted Desert, the Petrified Forest, the Grand Canyon. That was like the land that I always wanted to go to.
John Riggins.
What I didn't say in that, Larry, and I forgot to, is I wanted to see Camelot. I wanted to go to King Arthur's. I
thought you meant M Street.
Oh, is that where that is? I forgot all about it.
I thought you meant M Street.
What am I talking about?
I didn't know what you're talking about. You lost me.
What am I talking about? Hush your mouth. Just talk about Shaft. Okay, you've never heard of him, and I hadn't either until TCAT provided me some information, an article in Sports Illustrated this week, that I thought was pretty interesting, actually. There's a guy by the name of Trevor Bauer, who is a pitcher, and he certainly doesn't lack what appear for confidence. It's almost like, and I can't remember, but I think I was talking to my daughter, and there was a movie that came out about 10 years ago with Jim Carrey, I think, called Liar, Liar.
Yes, great movie. That's one I actually watched.
And that's the one where he goes around. He goes to this what he called seminar where this guy's talking about, isn't it, where you not need to start telling the truth no matter what.
Right.
So that's what he does. No matter what he tells her. In other words, hey man, you are really ugly, lady.
And he's a lawyer, I think.
Is that what it is?
He's right. He's a lawyer in the movie, which really is just that is the dichotomy of all time.
That's true. A lawyer telling the truth, right? Is that kind of where we're going with that? But anyway,
there's a tree's going to come through this front window. You better watch out, Todd.
It's funny you should bring that up, but I live down on the canal. Well, I don't live on the canal, but I'm right next to it, the canal that goes from Georgetown to Cumberland, Maryland. And I wouldn't ride my bike down there. I've seen too many times you'll come down, and a huge major tree has fallen across that path. And you read all the time about people dying from trees falling on their cars. So this weather last night driving home, there was branches down. I had to slow down and barely go over one. It wasn't that big, but anyway, I digress here. Back to Trevor Bauer.
Yes,
a guy that they say, which I find this hard to believe, that he's a self-made pitcher. And to the point where he's not just self-made, he's one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And, that got me to thinking. Then I started reading about the story. And as I said, he basically tells you what he really thinks. Now, whether he's right or whether he's wrong, you can argue that point. But he certainly has the confidence and the bravado to say as much as, well, I should have won the Cy Young Award last year.
He says that.
Which
he says that.
To me, I kind of go, well, okay. And one of the guys on his own team, I think, was up for it, and he basically says, well, I had a better year than him. Now, I don't know what that does. It's almost like I don't want to say he has Asperger's, but it's almost like he lacks a certain filter when it comes to other people's sensitivity. But then again, if you read the story, he was bullied as a child.
Yes.
So he kind of developed this really thick veneer, I think, and this is, so I kind of I had empathy for him. I kind of went, it's kind of not necessarily who I would want to be, but I can see how he got to where he is. And the fact that he's able to, this is what I couldn't really fathom, that nowadays there are technological advances which one could say, but it's not, but it borders on a PED for a different reason. And look at it. And so when you say a performance enhancing drug or performance enhancing device, you're kind of in that same ballpark. But he uses, I guess there's things where you can slow down. Like he'll film himself throwing a baseball.
Super slow-mo.
Like 2,000 frames a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that he can actually see his hands on the ball, see when when the ball leaves, what finger does it last. I mean, stuff that's so complicated that I can't really relate to it, and it's so beyond my scope of thinking that you can now, the guy with average talent will say, can actually develop into a world-class athlete. I've never really ever thought that possible. It's just like speed, the one thing I always, sprinters are born. They're not made. That's one thing I think is probably still pretty much true. But a guy like Trevor Bauer, he really is bordering in that fine line between where you can teach yourself to be a way better athlete than you normally could without all these technological advances.
And for this specific sport and this specific act, pitching, he has broken it down to such degree that he imitates the great Nolan Ryan. And if you put them side by side, even with that big follow-through leg whip that comes over, his right leg comes whipping over, finishes just like Nolan Ryan. And he has done this purposely. Watching those tapes, he's imitated him for years, but there's all kinds of other stuff. He takes electric shock to his brain, which I would think, John, if you had the opportunity back in your day to get electric shock to your brain, would you have allowed them to do that to you?
80 proof does pretty good for me. That's about all the shock I need.
That's
I'm
a good shock.
Yeah, that's a good shock.
I mean, who would ever think of this stuff? I mean, and I would say they also said that he wanted to get in better shape, and so he did all this stuff, but he's got just a bad metabolism. He put on a pound, or he put on a percentage of body fat, 1% body fat.
He was trying to get ripped and just couldn't do it.
He just could not do it to save his life.
Yeah, well, I guess the average physique, I suppose. Here's the other thing, though, the flip of this, and this is where I kind of wanted to take this, is in this day and age, it really doesn't, and I think I know the answer ultimately, but you have, and it's interesting because I had just watched last week, for whatever reason, my wife, Lisa Marie, decided she wanted to watch this documentary of Babe Ruth. I mean, it's an old documentary, too, because a lot of the people that actually are talking about Babe Ruth have been dead for quite some time, and I think Babe Ruth died in 1948 or something like that, born in 1895, if I get my dates correct. But the thing that you never hear about in any of these documentaries or any of the people they talk about Babe Ruth, they talk about his excesses, how he used to like to drink and womanize and all this and hit home runs, and he was just this big roly-poly fun guy, just full of life and wanted to live life to its fullest. And I don't doubt any of that's true. But as you were just talking about how this guy holds a baseball, how he throws it, and he's broken it down, and he's got these things where he can watch it and do all this stuff. This guy, and we're talking about Trevor Bauer right now, is a guy who's really taken a scientific approach to sports. Now, Babe Ruth, do you ever hear? I've never heard of anybody talking about what a hard worker Babe Ruth was or how much time he spent in a batting cage. I've never heard anybody say this, and yet years ago, somebody made the statement that hitting a baseball is, athletically speaking, is the most difficult task to perform. And I've always been flummoxed by Babe Ruth, his image, or the reality. How do you get to be that good of a hitter? I mean, was he born that way? Your logic would say, well, he certainly had certain attributes, quick wrists or whatever, and great eyes and all this stuff. But, you look at Babe Ruth, the body, and you kind of chuckle to yourself going, that fat bastard can hit a baseball that well?
A lot of hot dogs went into that body.
Yeah, on a regular basis during the game, and a few beers to wash it down, if I'm not mistaken. So I've kind of, which always goes back to this old book that my dad had gotten from Chet Haveley, the druggist, called So You Want to Be a Sprinter. And in this book, there's the guy, and the guy that wrote it was Bud Winter, Frank Bud Winter, he was actually the coach at San Jose when they had Tommy Smith, John Carlos, Speed City. This guy knew his stuff. And in it, he juxtaposed two guys that are going to be sprinters. One is Jack Champ, and the other is Joe Chump. Now, as you might guess,
Jack Champ and Joe Chump.
Yeah, and as you might guess, Jack Champ does everything correctly. Like before, he stretches before the race, and he's out there getting all worked out. Joe Chump, on the other hand, stands around with his friends, smoking weed. No, it was too way back before that. Smoking a cigarette, drinking a soda, chatting with his friends, does nothing. Jack Champ backs into his blocks and gets all ready to go, and Joe Chump just climbs up on top of his box and sets in. And so then they take off, and Jack Champ is running towards it, and he's running, just like he's sawing logs and all this stuff. And Joe Chump is for the crowd. He's throwing his head back and just like really working it. And then they get down to the wire, and Jack Champ, he leans into the wire and, to throw his shoulder so he can win the race. Joe Chump, what's he do? Throws his arms up, head back for the crowd, trying to please the crowd. Now, it always dawned on me that Jack Champ beats Joe Chump by this much. And I'm thinking, as my friend used to have this pillow, said, oh, Lord, give me a bastard with talent. And I'm thinking, well, which way is it? Do you want a hard worker, or do you want a bastard with talent? And I'm kind of torn there, because I don't know. Obviously, this Bauer kid is a hard worker, and Babe Ruth was Joe Chump. And I got to admit, I think Joe Chump's way of living is the way to go. So that's why. But the best, obviously, is to have a guy with great ability with Jack Champ's attitude. Then you've got a
Jack Chump.
Jack Champ and Joe Chump.
You might find him at the scouting combine in Indy.
And that's where I'm going with this, is that's who you need to be looking for. You need to find Joe Chump and coach him up, Larry.
Final word with Riggo after this.
Sports fans of all kinds have a new place to connect. Asbury Methodist Village. You have a competitive spirit or just like to be active, Asbury has everything you need. Tennis and bocce ball courts, a fitness center and pool. Plus, whatever team you root for, you'll find kindred spirits at Asbury. Come for a tour and check out everything Montgomery County's leading senior living community has to offer. Visit AsburyMethodistVillage.org to schedule a tour and find more information on our services and top-notch reputation. That's AsburyMethodistVillage.org. Asbury is an equal opportunity housing provider.
Your heart works hard, and sometimes its parts need repair. That's what we do at Innova's Structural Heart Program in Fairfax. With outcomes that exceed the national average, we're a leader in both minimally invasive repair techniques and surgery to address heart valve disease. Give your heart the benefit of care from Innova Heart and Vascular Institute. Find an Innova physician by visiting innovaheart.org/valve. Innova. Join the future of health.
Gearing up for game day? Your local Safeway has everything you need for the perfect tailgating or home gating party. Pick up all your favorites like wings, chips and dips, brats, burgers, beverages, and pizza. Stop by the deli to pick up fresh fried chicken or the produce department for a variety of party trays. Head on over to your local Safeway and pick up everyone's favorites. Safeway, the official supermarket of the Washington Redskins.
Who sat here? Your student? A peer? Your best friend? What did they grow up to be? A scientist? A nurse? An entertainer? Did you know it back then that they were made to stand out? Celebrate the extraordinary people made in Virginia Public Schools. Nominate a public school graduate for the Virginia Lottery's Made in Virginia Award. Details at madeinvirginia.com. Deadline October 12th. The Virginia Lottery, $9 billion to education, 30 years of fun.
Yes, and so I was going to go with you to Indianapolis to help look for Joe Chump and turn him into Jack Champ, but we all know that would be well beyond my ability to do that because I've always actually secretly harbored great feelings for Joe Chump and kind of pattered my life.
You are more of a Joe Chump
yes, I
with
am.
talent.
Yeah.
Joe Chump with talent.
And happened to be, and like I said at the beginning of the show, Larry, I would show up on game day. That was I kind of prided myself on playing, but during the week, that was my time, not the team's time.
All right, so what single event at the Combine matters the most?
Oh, to me, it's always the 40-yard dash. What would it be, Larry? I'm a sprinter. At least I was a sprinter. Not anymore.
That's easy enough.
My thighs are melting away. They starting to look like stilts, so. Indianapolis.
Thanks, man.